ahead with some introduction of me, a little more details, and then I'll explain more what we're planning to cover the next 45 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Good morning, all. As you heard, I was really looking forward to meeting you in person, but I'm glad we do that at least virtually these days. And as you heard, I mean, it's an introduction as well, or reintroduction of myself to the broader SQL community. I've been working a lot with Azure the past 10 years. Azure mostly infrastructure and various services as we landing Azure in the various data centers in Asia. But starting last June, I went back to my roots in a way. I'm back to Rohan Kumar's group of Azure Data Engineering, and particularly focusing on Azure Synapse and big data processing, and of course SQL Server, that is the engine of those all behind. I've been in Singapore for about 14 years. I've been with Microsoft about 22 years. I joined Microsoft, actually I'm not counting by years, I'm counting by versions of SQL. I joined Microsoft on SQL 7 beta. So trivia question, does anybody know the code name of SQL 7? And if I was in person, I would throw you a t-shirt. Did somebody reply with that? Because I cannot see.
Not yet.
Okay, so the code name, I know it's all this. We're talking 1997. Many of you, maybe you are not even knowing what SQL is. So that was Sphinx. That was the first time we introduced analysis services and all that stuff. So a lot of things changed since then, for sure. So as you heard, we're going to discuss today around Azure Synapse Analytics especially. Yes, today we renamed SQL Data Warehouse as the Azure Synapse, but Azure Synapse is not SQL DW only. As you'll see through this presentation, it's a whole suite of analytics, end-to-end, from loading data to orchestrating processes, to analyzing data using either Spark or using SQL, and then reporting using Power BI or any other tools you may require. So let me set up a little as far as the conversation and the demo we're going to have today, so it kind of flows a little better as we're discussing this. So the scenario is going to be here a combination of Dynamics 365 Customer Insights and Azure Synapse Analytics. The scenario is for a retail business, and retailers, one of the main things they want to have in place is a customer 360 view. The idea here is to combine efficiently historical data, real-time data, and potentially, let me see if I can see the notes. If I present, I cannot see the notes, I think, right? Okay, it's either or, sounds like. Okay, we'll go to the notes when we have a break, and I'll see if there are any questions over there, or somebody can, yell. It's okay. So we're going to go and discuss here how we're capturing the different data elements from customer insights and how we bring this into Synapse Analytics to create this actionable intelligence at the end. If you look at it in the bigger picture, this is, I'm sure, very common to if you're using a data warehousing today. You have your operational big data on the left, and then you have the customer data more on the right. The idea is how you create a common data model between those two data sets to create a common view to support all these requirements. So assuming this is your high-level vision, this is where we see analytics and Dynamics 365 playing roles to create this customer view. From Azure Synapse, you see, and this is very classic Lambda architecture, so I don't believe this is new to a lot of you. We are talking, how we capture through a single analytics service, and that's the big thing. On-premise data, cloud data, SaaS, streaming data, unify them, and then put them in a data lake model where We can query through different tools and options like SQL, Spark, machine learning, or any other tools that we may need. The idea with Synapse here, folks, is to really create a unified experience instead of going today and try to combine together multiple tools or services, even from us. We know it's not easy many times to, with Azure Data Factory and then Data Lake and then Power BI or machine learning. So definitely Synapse is not only bringing technology, but it's also introducing a discipline and a methodology as you go from left to right in a way, and you're building this experience. So this is, and I'm going to jump to the demo in a couple of minutes, but our demo scenario goes through the process of we having an importer. We call them wide world importers. And the idea here is they have a lot of classic stores, but they have also an online store. So what they would like to do is they like to create a process where they gain business insights. They identify where the problems are as far selling issues or upselling opportunities, and go by and develop a methodology on how to do that. So this is what we're going to see in the next half an hour or so as we're working through this demo. So let me jump to the demo, if I may. All right, so here I have a Power BI screen that is fairly familiar to many of you. And the idea over here is to create, through Synapse, combining data for campaign and customer analytics, which we consider historical data. That's where we see trends, and that's where we see things, progressing. We have real-time Twitter analytics, and then we have location analytics as well, which is more from sensors in the process. And then we have product recommendation and analytics. For the real-time solution, for the real-time location analytics, we are counting 100% on IoT gateway. And if I open a small file over here, essentially our stores appear in this fashion, if you can see the screen. And that's where we can identify the red areas, which gives us in the store, this is the traffic in the store, where we see customers spending more time in particular areas in the store versus avoiding other areas. And then you can set up your campaigns or your inventory even better through some IoT processes. So let's go to some more details. One of the main issues we have over here is, I don't know if you can see my screen well, but we are tracking here net sales for millennials. So those net sales, you can see they are dropping. And we like to identify why we're losing, why we're not doing well in millennials. Why, what is the reason of this particular generation that is not working well with our platform? So that would be an element that we try to see through all this analysis eventually, what is the issue and where we can, what tools we can use to identify them. So I'm going to jump first into Dynamics 365. I know this is a SQL community, and we are talking for SQL and Synapse, but when we're talking overall as far as data sets and data sources, understanding also areas where we have customer information, and that can be Dynamics or can be Salesforce or it can be SAP or wherever your data customer information comes. For a customer 360, understanding well the customer and how you can get the right information, it's very important to have a best baseline for all this. So what we see over here, I don't know if you've seen that before, is the customer insights view in Dynamics 365. And as you can see over here, we've done already we have 101,000 customers in my database here. Okay, it's a small company, granted. But you see over here, we have enriched the data enough to identify their interest by sports, travel, shoes, what have you. And then we also go down to the brands to understand which brands these people using. And then you see here the segmentation of the 101,000 customers by generations, and generation Y, Z, X, Y. You know, there is a particular age range that people fall in that process, right? So let me go through some of the options you have as you managing your customers in a tool like Customer 365. So the biggest one, of course, is around unifying your data sets. So in my scenario, as you see on the left, I have data from Salesforce, from Adobe, from Dynamics, of course. So the idea here is to create a mapping among those data sets, and you know, with particular fields, with particular joins, you're creating a single view of this data. So after the mapping, you can go through the process of matching this data. And as you see over here, we have 101,000 customers. Based on the mappings we have, we produce a 95,000 data set that is matched. Now, another thing, of course, we allow in many of those customer systems is we allow, as we call it, fuzzy logic, which is even if the data is not 100% matched, it gives us a certain level of certainty that, you know, is kind of the better than nothing. I mean, we know enough for these records, and we can carry this forward. And the last one we have as an option over here, of course, is to merge. After you map and you match, we have merging. And the idea, as you see over here, is to create an entity of customer records by cleaning up duplicates and all this stuff. So the reason I'm bringing that is, in many cases, customer master customer data in a Customer 360 example is very important. You need to take more control into that, understand what is the source, what options we have. And if everything works well, I'll show you an example. After all these segmentations and stuff have been done, let me show you one of the customer records, for example, Margot Wolf. So if you go over here, you can see in a customer record, we can have links like emails they did, if they opened the email. And the most important here, what is the churn score? And then what is the revenue per customer through this process? So this gives you a very rich data set already. When you bring it forward through Synapse, you can do a lot of analysis in this process, including you can generally enrich your data set by including third-party data sources, like over here, when I can take based on gender and postcode and date of birth, I can add, you know, additional elements for the customer, what brand or what interests they have. So this is what I wanted to show you, essentially, just to set up the stage a little. This is, again, a retail customer. This is the customer base. And they want to start working through a process where they can start collating all this information much better. Any questions so far? Let me jump into the, no questions so far. Okay, well, yeah? Yeah. All right, so let me jump to Synapse because I think that's where everybody is here for. So what we see over here is the Synapse workspace. As you know, we are still on early preview. We're planning later on the year to have the public preview, where we'll allow more of you to come and join the product through a preview. And then we haven't really finalized the GA plans yet, but we're looking generally for later this year, depending on the feedback from the previews and how we are over there. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to walk you through a little the Synapse and how you see the different interfaces over here. So we have the home, of course, which is kind of your link for everything. kind of the centralized point where you can show you the different resources you opened recently, but it also gives you a standard flow. It gives you a standard flow to do some basic stuff, right? So you see, you have the ingest, we have the explore, analyze, and visualize. So the idea here is to provide a discipline where you can go and create a certain process. So let me show you a little better the ingest. So when I go in the ingest, this is one of the most elementary services in a way for any kind of ETL tool or a data warehousing tool. So here I'm going to share with you that I'll give you an understanding what kind of data stores we can use as sources. So what we did in Synapse, we tried to include a lot of smart connectors. Not only, the traditional OLEDB or DBC connections, which of course we have as well, but provide a higher level of connections. So when I create a new connection, you'll see a very large number of smart connectors. So let's say if I go SAP, you see I have a BW, I have the ECC, the older one, I have HANA, or you can go down to the actual tables. Of course, you have Cassandra, we have Salesforce, we have a lot of these, smart, I would say, connectors. You can also go by and group them from here and see different ways how we're connecting like databases. Of course, I have SAP here, that's why it shows only SAP. But you can go to Redshift, you can go, BigQueries, you can go to any of those. So this is not only connecting natively, but also these connectors are pretty smart, the way they're understanding the metadata and the services of each data source, and we hope to make the transformations easier. So this is as far as the data source. So when we connect to the data sources, which I believe is going to be pretty straightforward, one of the main areas you're going to spend a lot of time in Synapse is what we call Orchestrate, which is essentially Azure Data Factory, new version, that we're bringing into Synapse as a service to support us as we're developing and we execute. So allow me to go to the Orchestrate, and there you can see we have different pipelines that we can go and explore over here. So let me show you some of the pipelines we have, and if I've used before analysis integration services, or Azure Data Factory, this stuff should be pretty familiar to you. So here we have an example that takes an SAP HANA finance table, and then we're putting it into Azure Data Lake store. This is kind of the motion, as we call it. And the mapping is where it gets more traditional mapping through visualizations, where we're taking the source and then we're putting a number of transformations. And you can hear you describe them a little better. You can take only the last 5 years of data, create a split over here to have different derived columns, and et cetera, et cetera. And at the end, it goes and loads all this data to Azure Synapse Analytics table, from where later on we can do our analysis. Generally, when you start a pipeline with a data source, which in my case is data from SAP HANA, that's where you can see the different tasks you can do step by step. You can do a new branch or a split, or you can do all this kind of input-outputs activities. And then you can go for the next steps to develop aggregates, target kits, filters, etc. So this is not, I believe, terrible and unfamiliar to many of you, but this is where you go and you create a pipeline. We call it, essentially codeless, where you're using the GUI and then the different views over here to allow you to build this type of transformation. Now, a couple of other pipelines I wanted to share with you to see a little options we have. We have the marketing database migration. So let me go through that and show you this. So this is where you have a scenario where you want to move data from a Teradata database, again, into Azure Data Lake. So here, we have the copy data, which is essentially the data source identification and the target. And then we have the concept of the notebook over here, which is not new only for Synapse, but instead of doing a codeless GUI, as we did before, you can also embed your own notebook where it has the code, specific code for the data that come in and come out, and then give it very granular control on how the data moves. So if I go to the settings of this particular notebook, that's where you can see here in details, that's where we're using here PySpark in particular. And if I show you the different languages in that notebook, we support PySpark, Python, Spark, Scala, .NET, Spark, and then Spark SQL as well. And then another concept in addition to the languages, and you'll see that in various formats, is what kind of database pools or SQL engines we're using to support this particular notebook. So I'm not going to go in details into the Python code right now. I just wanted you to see the notebook. And as you notice, as I'm scrolling down, we actually see results of each section of the notebook. So here's the cell 2, and it shows me the results below. And then we have a cell 3. As you're scrolling down, you see results either as a view or you can see them as a chart and different charts. And then it goes down level by level to show you till the end when you have your final results, right? So the idea over here, as we started the conversation, is when you go to a pipeline, you can also interject your notebook and you can write your own Python or Spark, Scala, whatever you want to, or combination in the notebook and create a very rich, optimized, transformation in your systems. Just to point out a couple of other of the orchestrations we have available. We have, of course, Twitter, that you can load tweet data from ADLS down to ADLS as well. Nothing terribly complicated over here. And if you ever want to do, you can do also migration, simple tasks. In my case, I have an Oracle database, and then I want to load the data to Azure Synapse. So again, you're doing all your information, you're putting the mapping and the syncing and all that. And again, we support, of course, this heterogeneous kind of data movement from across multiple different databases. So talking for data, of course, so that's the main thing. That is another area in Synapse where you can go in addition to orchestrate and prepare your data movement. So we have a section in Synapse, we call it data. So now when I go to data, you see over here on the left, let me collapse those elements. I have my storage accounts, I have my databases, and I have my data sets. So you can even have defined data sets with all the joins and all the stuff, and you can use it as you're building data elements over here. So just to show you a little more on the data and what can be done, if I go to my storage account demo and I open my Twitter data, what we see over here is essentially the data we saved using one of the orchestrate pipelines I showed you before, where we're taking the Twitter data source and then we're putting it in our data lake storage, which is over here. Now, The coolest, this is Parquet files, and it shows you it's a list of Parquet files over here that you can utilize. So you as a developer, you see these Parquet files, and it will be very cool to understand what is the structure, what is the data elements straight out of here. So what do we allow you in Synapse? For example, I can highlight 2 of them, and I can right-click and say new SQL script from those Parquet files. So I'm getting this query over here that is going to produce, as you see, a result set over here that is going to go and populate it using all the connectors to my Parquet. So when I run this one, oops, I did publish, sorry. When I run this one, I hope the publishing did not affect the execution time here. Hold on a second. One thing I want you to see over here as well in the command as we're waiting, this is a new feature in Synapse as well. And I know why it took 33 seconds versus run is going to take 1 second. Well, beyond of being nervous when you do live demos and it takes 33 seconds, the other thing over here, folks, is, and actually that's good for the demo, we have the concept of SQL on demand in Synapse. So SQL on demand is a very cool feature. It's essentially SQL serverless, where we can run commands, we can run queries, and then we instantiate a SQL instance on Azure on demand. We run in the query, and then when the query is done, after a while, not immediately, we clean up those SQL serverless, and life goes on. We could use some other options. We can connect directly to Synapse DW, but also we can use SQL on demand. Synapse DW, of course, is going to give you the very large provisioned environment. When SQL on demand, again, it has to spin off an instance, but then the instance becomes available in the cache in your session for a particular, till it's not used for a particular period. So this is the cool stuff you can do, connecting directly. So here you can see, the structure. You can see what is available to you. So you can take this query and you can start building in a way against those Parquet files from Twitter and creating proper queries and proper mappings with good visualization out of that. Cool. Now, so this is for the storage accounts. I just want you to browse a little that in the same way, I can connect to an Azure Synapse data warehouse, which is our, our SQL DW next version, which we call it SQL Pools today. And you can see from here, I can browse directly my data warehouse databases as well, and the tables. I can create, a classic store procedure, so I can start seeing data. I can see my results set at the bottom, so I can understand better, again, what is my data set, what elements I have over here as I'm planning to do development. All right, any questions so far? Or pretty straightforward stuff for all you folks?
There was one before,
Yeah.
I think already answered. Can we connect to SAP database?
I'm sorry, come again?
Can we connect to SAP database, SAP database?
Yeah. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot do it now because I don't have a SAP database. But the idea from here is you're creating a data source on the SAP database, and then you come in these databases and you're creating. You can start seeing them from here. So the databases I have over here. This is different data sources I have available. So when you go Let me go back here over here. So the idea here is when you go here and you create a new data source, that's where this data source can be used down in the pipelines to connect and query the data, SAP. I don't know if your question is if you can do it interactively as I'm doing over here. I don't think so. It's more through query and results versus cool interactive ways like we have with Azure Synapse and Twitter and storage and things like that, right? So if your question is, can I do this live cool interactions with SAP databases? Currently, and we're looking into that, currently in preview, we don't have this ability. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think hope so.
Yeah, the only way you can interact with SQL with SAP would be through, let me go back to the orchestrate, is through these tasks when you're doing source and target and you see all this information over here. That's where your data source comes in place, right? But not in the data blade yet for SAP. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me move forward. I'll take some. I think I'll leave some time at the end, see if we can get any more questions. I'm sure there are plenty. I mean, this is a. Let me tell you, Synapse is going to be very disruptive in a good way as SSIS or other cool tools came around. So Synapse, trust me, is going to be with us for years to understand and to build it. I know from us, from engineering, is one of our major focus of investment and development. So if you want to be relevant and be, good professional around data, definitely focus on learning and playing with Synapse the next, few months as we bring it out the public preview, especially. Cool. So let me go to another section here, which is, is not a traditional area where SQL folks work well, but there is, of course, another big area from the development community where they're working on with development tools and development languages to manage data. So when we go to the develop section, we have a few areas here. Let me collapse those things. So we have SQL scripts area, we have notebooks, we have data flows, and we have Power BI. So the cool thing with Synapse is we added Power BI natively in the tool, so you can build your Power BI dashboards and publish them from here and be essentially part of your overall workspace project. I may add over here at the top, guys, maybe I missed this one. I'm working in a Dream Demo Synapse workspace. So the idea here is like a .NET project in a way. You're going to have different workspaces where you're building all these scenarios as far data, orchestrations, notebooks, and then you have, as we'll see later on, monitoring and managing all these workflows and all these processes. So it is a nice, as I was telling you, methodology where you capture end-to-end a particular data movement in your area. So for the development part, let me jump to a SQL script. In my case, this one, external data to Synapse. And then let's run it. And we'll see what we get from here. They actually work pretty nicely. So this is we're creating a table in DW. So this is a SQL query, very much like Transact SQL, but we're not using SQL Server. We're using the Azure Synapse Data Warehouse. And there, when we're creating a table, there are some additional things you can add in a data warehouse as far as, for example, distribution. In my case, it's round robin, or it can be hashed in different ways. So when I create these tables in my data warehouse, then we can copy from the Parquet files, as we saw before, how we access the Parquet, how we're creating all this information. And then, so simply what we see in this script, we have a number of Parquet files into my data lake. And then I'm going into these files, I'm reading those files, and I'm loading the information into a table I just created in SQL DW or Synapse DW. Sorry, it'll take me a while to change that. But that's to give you an idea how we can bridge, in a way, Twitter Parquet files with a data warehouse data load, and then start using it from there for queries and all that. Another cool query to show you is a SQL query with Synapse. This is more a demo purpose, but I wanted you to see I'm doing a count on my worldwide sales table. And as you see, this is a 30 billion rows table, right? That's a big table. So in this demo, we're going to see, you see I'm using this table over here, same table name, and we're doing a bunch of, which is kind of my fact table. And I'm doing a number of joins here with products, and then left outer join with analytics and some other databases over here. And then I'm passing a where statement and a group by. So when we run this one, I want you to experience the raw power. Look at that. I mean, and it was not cached, right? Because I'm running all these scripts live with you guys. I mean, you saw before it was cached. It was not cached, even my SQL engine. The point is, and I don't want to oversimplify things here, but if DW has the proper partitioning, the proper distribution across the different partitions we have, you can achieve some amazing performance. So if you see DW is not performing too well in your queries, let's analyze why. Let's see if we have sometimes more skewed distributions versus others. I mean, ideally, we want distributions in DW to have equal amount of records, ideally, so we can run full parallel across all of them. A last query I want to share with you is a JSON extractor. This is the case, where we go in after the Twitter data in a JSON format, not in Parquet. So let me run this query to show you the particular data set. You see here I have my Twitter data in a JSON kind of format. So I can go over here and run as well queries with using JSON level queries, and get my information in a more structured format out of the big JSON extract, and get it in columns, and then I can essentially create some additional queries. I can filter, for example, not only query. I can go and pass a parameter to filter the data. So I'm getting a smaller data set over here. So this is the develop part as far as SQL. I'm hoping, I show you some examples, with JSON, with Parquet, and SQL itself. And here is, I'm keep using, Azure Synapse DW versus SQL OnDemand, just because, that's where we have our big data sets, is persisted properly, and all these good things. Now you can still do SQL OnDemand, but I expect those query times are going to be substantially longer versus DW, where the data is well distributed and well optimized. So let me go a little in the notebooks as well to give you a flavor. I'm sorry, is there a question? Or somebody slept on the microphone?
There is one question.
Yeah.
About migrating on-prem SQL Server and servers, previous analytics can only migrate tabular data warehouse, non-multidimensional. Is it still a case of Synapse?
You want to migrate a SQL Server on-premise to DW? Is that your question?
Yes, I think. We want to migrate on-prem SQL Server and previous analytics, which is to data warehouse or non-multidimensional. Is it a case of Synapse?
So you want to migrate analysis services as well from on-premise, or only the relational SQL Server?
SQL Server Analytics Server on-prem.
Okay, so you're talking SQL Server, the SSAS essentially,
Yeah.
right? Right. So the answer is no. We don't have yet a direct migration. That's a good feedback though. We're looking into that. We kind of expect the analysis services migration path would be to go to Azure Analytics Services, and then we can use this one as a data source in Synapse. So you don't have to bring it into the DW itself. Data into DW would be probably the source data of your analysis services, if we can get that, like the actual relational data warehouse. That is where you can go into the SQL DW. Make sense? And then another option you have, of course, with Synapse, you can use then Spark on top of this data warehouse you're loading and do some pretty creative and fast queries and analysis similar to analysis services to a certain extent. But no, we don't support multi-dimensional upgrades into SQL DW.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, but a good question. And actually, these questions, I know we're still early with Synapse. I'm taking some notes here. Gives me some ideas or areas where we need to put more clarification and documentation to the communities, because these are definitely good questions. Thank you. All right, I have a few minutes, so I'm gonna go a little more into, where am I going now? Notebooks, yep. And let me open one notebook over here, which is kind of my favorite. I'm not gonna, again, go through the actual, I just want you to show you, as I showed you before, you can develop a very nice complex notebooks over here with the right languages. The exciting part, which is coming soon, especially in public preview, is Spark in Synapse, and this is going to be a Microsoft Spark distribution. This is not the one we have in HD Insight or in Databricks today, so this is a nice new, sparking new Spark engine that we have within Synapse, so you can run different Spark levels queries in the system. And you see here we're supporting different languages for Spark, from Python, Scala, C#, and SQL, of course, if you want to do that. So I'm not going to go through that, but the notebook, it works the same way like before. You can have different sections in the notebook, and as you're going through and you display or you execute, you can see result sets as they come through. Here is still mappings and everything, but at the end we see the ratings. This produces a product recommendation engine, essentially. I wanted to show you a little the Power BI as well integration that we have. That's pretty cool, I believe. This is where you can build Power BI straight out of here. So I'll open one of my main reports over here, the CDP main vision demo. If you guys been around, you remember a decomposition tree from many years now. It's still alive and well. That's where you can go and click. Let's say if I click North America or I click Europe, I can decompose that very quickly. I can click UK, and get, or I can click France, or any of those. If it has more details below that. No, country is the lower level. So you can create this kind of views, or you can create a different views as you like over here. You can change, if you like, the way the data is displayed. So essentially, you're building through here. This is a Power BI engine within your workspace, and then when this one is done, you can have it packaged and you can have it deployed into a proper Power BI deployment on Azure, and then people can access it and modify all the stuff. So it gives you access to different Power BI reports. You have also your data sets as well, which you can create, through all this workspace. I mean, these data sets are available, or you can build additional if you like. And then from here, you can build the different reports, over here. I'm not going to go to details. We're calling it billion raw records. I don't know how exciting is that to many of you, but the point is you can do. And we have built in as well, of course. Let's see if that works over here. Yeah, we have English language in many places. You can type here sales by region, for example, and then you can see a particular result set, which you can put in your report. So that's another thing. We try to embed native language queries in many places over here. So I'm on time, and I want to ensure I don't overlap with the other ones. Very happy to be introduced to your team, folks. I'm very happy to participate in any of those events. There'll be no shortage of new exciting things to share with you as we're coming pretty much every 3 months. We're coming with new features. So if you allow me, I'll be happy to come and have similar presentations for new features.
Yeah, hi Nicholas. Actually, I have 2 questions. Can we connect to on-prem SAS cubes from Azure Synapse Analytics? And second is like my on-prem SAS cube is in multi-dimensional model.
So for the first one,
yep.
Conceptually, yes, and it's not a matter of SSAS and Synapse, it's a matter of connectivity. So we would need, you have to go through all these processes of, establishing the firewall and the connections and the IP addresses and everything. So it's not a matter of Synapse. If we had an analysis services cube, for example, in a VM on Azure, you can easily connect. I would say here, it's a matter of setting up all the network connections and firewalls and securities and all that. But in principle, you can connect, yes. And the next one, is there any version control feature? You mean for the workspace as far as releasing and all that? Yes. So yes, I mean, we don't have it within Azure Synapse as a separate version control, but we are integrating with, I forgot the name, we are integrating with the framework of Microsoft has as far as deploying and managing code. So we are fully compliant with that, but we don't have our own. We're going to integrate with what we're offering already. Okay.
Okay, if anyone have any questions, you may ask. So you can unmute and ask to Nicholas.
If not, please keep an eye for the public preview. When I get it as well, I'll share with the community, or at least some of the folks I have here in the team. And please download it, start play, give us feedback. We're looking forward to have a great product here.
Sure. Thanks, Nicholas. Actually,